Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're embarking on a journey that's honestly kind of unlike anything else we've tackled together. Normally we're the ones unpacking like massive data sets, weaving through these wildly complicated historical narratives, or trying to break down intricate science concepts. But today's source material sets a distinctly different vibe. It's atmospheric. It's mysterious. Because we're looking at an artifact that's actually defined not by how much information it gives us, but literally by how much it leaves out.
So what happens when the archive hands you almost nothing? It's a really unique challenge. I got to admit, as a researcher, there's a certain irony to it. Picture this. You sit down at your desk, brew a giant cup of coffee, and mentally prep yourself to just grind through this massive, sprawling case file, right? You're expecting boxes of documents, cross-references, huge timelines, and instead, you get a whisper, an echo. It totally forces us to shift our whole perspective on what it actually means to extract knowledge from a source.
Let's take a look at exactly what we've been handed here. Because this is the literal entirety of our source text. Zodiac Killer. And that's it. There are no dates, no geographical coordinates, no long-winded paragraphs laying out the context for us. Just two isolated words standing completely alone on the page. Staring into this kind of void, it's impossible not to ask, what else does the source reveal? I mean, when you're handed something this incredibly brief, your brain instantly goes into overdrive trying to fill in the gaps. You find yourself scanning the edges of the page, digging for a footnote, a hidden appendix, literally just praying for a stray piece of metadata that'll crack the whole thing wide open. We end up leaning into that sort of theatrical energy of the emptiness, almost hoping that if we just stare at it hard enough, more text is magically going to appear. But nope, the excerpt ends right here. It just stops. So the crucial point is, we're literally left sitting here with nothing but a name. We've hit the absolute brick wall of our source material. And there's a really strange finality to that, don't you think? It's not some dramatic cliffhanger where the rest of the page was ripped off. No, it's a deliberate, finalized presentation of a completely incomplete thought.
This brilliantly highlights this massive dilemma with our own expectations. Think about it. When a historical subject gets brought up, we expect the full deep dive. We want the who, the what, the when, where, and why. We're expecting this vast timeline and endless context. But instead, we get two words. The stark contrast between our huge expectations and the chilling reality of this tiny snippet of text is just staggering. It's a reminder that the archive owes us absolutely nothing, and honestly, today, it's making that abundantly clear. Now, stepping back for a second to look at the meta nature of all this, we're technically looking at an excerpt. Now, the dictionary definition is super simple, a short extract from a piece of writing, but it begs the question, how short is short? Usually an extract at least gives you enough to grasp a basic concept, right? Like a complete sentence, or maybe a solid fragment of a thought. But sometimes the archive is just incredibly stingy. It gives us barely enough text to even qualify as a sentence. It honestly redefines the whole concept of an extract.
So let's break this down to its absolute most literal components. We've got the word zodiac, the word killer, and then, boom, an abrupt ending. I really want to make sure you're feeling the weight of this. If we strip away every book, every movie, every deep dive article, and all that outside cultural context floating around in your head, this right here represents the entirety of our evidence. We have a modifier acting as a proper noun, a highly charged noun, and then zilch, zero. It is literally the ultimate exercise in forced minimalism. So why does this matter? Why even take the time to walk through an explainer of something so ridiculously brief? Well, because we have to deal with the unresolved tension of an empty archive. We live in an age where we're so used to having literally every answer right at our fingertips, but sometimes we're handed an incomplete narrative, and we just have to sit with the uncomfortable reality of that void. It teaches us so much about the fragility of historical records. It's a stark reminder that sometimes history is just a tiny, isolated fragment that barely managed to survive the passage of time. Which brings us to our final, lingering question. How does a single name, completely stripped of all context, still manage to carry so much weight? How can an archive hand us virtually nothing, yet still evoke so much? It is a massive testament to the raw power of a label, even when it's just echoing around in an entirely empty room. I want to leave you with that stark reality, just those two words lingering in your mind. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and for exploring the fascinating and, sometimes super frustrating depths of the minimalist archive.